We the mafia. 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 Bills mafia. Bills mafia. We the mafia. We the mafia. Bills mafia. Bills mafia. We the mafia. Bills mafia. Bills mafia.
What is happening, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of the Mafia Cast. We are joined today by Sarah from Buffalo Rumbling. She also has her own show with Jerry Ostrowski, Three Man Rush. It's a great show, so check it out. How you doing today, Sarah?
I'm good. I'm good. I was telling you just a little while ago. I was been running around. It's been one of those days. I actually just got home probably 15 minutes ago. So definitely been at it all day long. But I'm glad I get to join.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. You kind of bring in a different perspective here than what we would normally get here with the Mafia Cast. You went to the Senior Bowl and got to see these guys up front and personal and kind of get to know some of them. And what was your initial impression of some of the players there? Any that really stood out for you that maybe would be good fits for Buffalo at any point in the
Yeah.
draft?
Well, I went with obviously in my mind. I wanted to look at wide receivers, running backs, offensive line, and then probably safety, and then a little bit of linebacker just in case. We all have our worries about whether or not Edmonds will be back or not. So
Yeah.
kind of went in with some ideas of who I wanted to see. Who I wanted to get a good view of. And to be honest with you, my favorite person heading in was a running back, Roshan Johnson. I talked about him a lot heading in, and unfortunately, the first day he ended up breaking a bone in his hand. He played
Oh
through it,
no.
but he ended up not practicing the rest of the week. So that was definitely a little bit disappointing for me. But even the one day that he was there, a lot of people are definitely taking a look at him. He would be more of a probably a mid-round back, fourth, fifth round. Definitely looking forward to seeing us have someone with a little bit more of a change of pace from Cooks. He is a bigger back, which I feel like we need.
Yeah.
I think he's like 215, 6'2", like he's a big guy. So I definitely enjoyed watching him. I just saw someone in the comments talk about Bergeron. I actually posted a Twitter video of one. I think it was the day 2 practice. He was so good on one play. He got blown up the play before, I will admit, but he was so good on one play that like I was like scrolling into. I'm like, who just opened up that hole on a run? Um, some of it was Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears had an amazing. I'm sure everyone's going to hear about him left and right from
Yeah.
Tulane. He had an amazing Senior Bowl, the practices, the game itself, but he opened up such a big hole that it just looked like like Tajay just slipped right through and just touchdown. But it was he just held his own and created the space that Tajay needed. So was very excited to scroll in and realize, oh my God, that's that's Syracuse right there. So it felt good to see some homegrown um, talent out there that did well. But everyone has been talking about the O line and whether or not we need a left guard or whether or not we need a right guard or whether or not we need enough the offensive tackle. I am I kind of look at it a little differently than some people. I'm okay with moving Bates back over to left guard and getting a right guard. Um right tackle, everyone's questioning whether or not Spencer Brown's it. I want to believe that it was his injury last year, why he, was so
Yeah.
bad. But Osiris Torrance, I got to actually speak with him. Um, the guy is incredible, and he told me he was like, not to toot my own horn, um, but he was like, his biggest concern in the NFL is that first sack that he lets go, because he has not let up 3,000, over 3,000 snaps. He has
Yeah.
never had a sack go against him, which is incredible. So, I'm definitely looking forward. I don't know if he'll last to pick 27. But if he is there, it is definitely a pick, for us to look at. Another person who really stood out on the line was John, and I'm gonna kill his last name. It's a hyphenated last name. Um, what was his name? I'm gonna kill it. I know it wasn't John. It's Michael Smith. No,
Oh,
I'm killing his
Smith.
last
Is
name.
it?
No, John Michael Smith. That's what his name is. I knew I had both names in there. John Michael Schmidt. He was really good, and he is versatile. So talking to him, he says he's been kind of moved all up and down the line. So we can have him at center, we can have him at left guard, we can have him at right guard. He actually prefers center or right guard, which is perfect. Yeah, someone just mentioned Michael Schmidt. Yeah, it's John Michael Schmidt. So I definitely had the names in my head. I just couldn't think of the combination. So there are some really good people that we can definitely find on the line. I think if we can get Torrance, that would be amazing. I don't know if
Yeah.
a lot of the mocks don't have him there. Um, and then there was one more, and I'm gonna have to look because I want to make sure that. Oh, Cody Mauch.
Oh
He
yeah.
was probably my favorite person to talk to. Um, but it wasn't even about football. Like it was, like how did you lose your front teeth? And he's like, he goes, everyone thinks I play hockey, but he's like, I actually lost my teeth playing basketball, and he's
Oh
just
wow.
never got them, replaced. So definitely a character, but he spoke very easily with the media, which was really intriguing. Like he felt like for coming from a small school, he's from North Dakota, coming from a
Yeah.
small school, it was intriguing to see how well he spoke in front of the media. He didn't care. um he walked away and let this little kid interview him, which was really cute. You get to see a different side of people during the whole event. So what's really cool at the Senior Bowl is they have breakfast for media, and they do like a panel of 5 players, and then you get to go up and talk to them all. But even if they're not on the panel, you get to walk around and just talk to whoever you want to talk to. So it was really cool just spending some time. um I will say that I know we don't need Tajay Spears, but he was amazing.
He
There
looked
are
good in the
some,
game.
yeah, there are some running backs. Most of the running backs that are there, I think he upped his stock. But most of the running backs that are there will probably be more like third, fourth round, maybe even fifth round picks. Um, but I think the one surprise was how much I fell in love with a couple of the safeties. Darius Rush was like the fastest man on the field all the time. And to be a DB and be faster than, the running backs, faster than the wide receivers.
Yeah.
And he played both corner and safety during the week. So for him to be that fast, you don't normally see safeties that are that fast, but so he would be in the deep in the backfield, and he would be beating some of the linebackers to the running back. So I'm like, this could be, intriguing. So, but I wanted to say we talked a little bit about wide receivers. I think there are some intriguing prospects there. It's always hard because, like Gabe Davis, we thought he was going to be everything we wanted. He proved that he could be at times. He's just not consistent. So that's my biggest concern when it comes to drafting a wide receiver early. I would love Quentin Johnston from Texas, but that's or from TCU, but that is probably not going to happen at pick 27. So I kind of looked at some people that we would probably be able to get in like the second round or third. A lot of people have us leaning towards Flowers or Josh Downs. Um, I just they haven't really
I
impressed
don't,
me as much.
I don't think Flowers makes it to 27. Just all the hype that I'm hearing around
Yeah,
him.
but I feel like it's too much hype. I don't know. And I feel bad saying it because again, you just don't know what it's going to be at the next level. Um, I personally want a big wide receiver. I want someone who is going to, win those 50-50 battles. I want someone um who not necessarily has to be as, as fast as some of these other guys, just is really, methodical on his routes, can create the separation. And if for some reason the separation's not there, he's still going to win the battle.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned it a couple of times. I absolutely love Xavier Hutchinson. He probably could put on 5 to 10 more pounds with how lengthy he is, and it not really affect his his speed and stuff. But the one thing everyone talked about at the Senior Bowl was how well he was a runner, and he's played in both slot and as the second wide receiver. So it's an intriguing concept, but some people say he kind of reminds them of Gabe Davis. So um I don't want another Gabe Davis. I want someone who can complement him, and possibly I want a true number two. And I kind of look at Gabe Davis as saying he can go. I think he kind of, I don't want to say he excelled at the four, but it's, I think it kind of where he needs to be. Um, Either coming in to spell whoever is our second wide receiver, or to when we have more wide receivers out there, that to include him.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. But I say all this, and I say it every year. We look at all these people at Senior Bowl, we look at the people at the combine, and then we do all these mock drafts and all this other stuff. We have no clue until free agency, because if
Yeah.
we go out and spend, well, not that we have any money to spend, but if we go out and spend some money on free agency, we're not going to go with, if we get an offensive tackle, we're not going to go and use our number one pick on an offensive tackle, stuff like that. So I kind of look at everything as like, oh, this is the preempt, I'm going to keep on having my favorites, and keep on watching and learning and everything about these people. But I have no idea who we will actually be interested in until we figure out who we get and who we keep. Because, if we end up letting Poyer and Edmonds both walk, we might not be going offensive line in the first, or wide receivers. So
I mean, to me, that's kind of a scary proposition.
I know.
I,
It really is.
just
It really is.
like I hear a lot of people talk about, to hell with the defense, put all that money into the offense, let Edmonds go, let Poyer go, fill them in with whoever, and spend that money on the offense, because that's where that's where this league is and everything. And I get that, and especially after watching the Super Bowl, the Eagles coming in with that much hype defense, with that much hype pass rush, and they did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. The second half, they couldn't stop, Kansas City at all. So,
Yeah,
sometimes you wonder if it's if you have an offense that can scheme against even the best of the the defenses out there, if it's needed. But I think that Kansas City's defense was a lot better this year than people gave them credit for.
yeah,
And I think that towards the end of the season, we saw Frank Clark, Chris Jones, that they just were incredible towards the end of the season. Now, the offense really wasn't. They were still winning, but if you look at Kansas City, they weren't the same Kansas City. So if it wasn't for their defense stepping up, the last few games of the season before the playoffs and everything, they might not have went in with the number one seed, because the defense is kind of what held them there. So I think that it's got to be a good balance.
yeah.
Seattle had a pretty decent offense this year. Detroit had an amazing offense. Detroit's offense was crazy, but their defense couldn't stop anybody. So I think it
Yeah.
has to be a little bit of a balance.
I would agree. And this is so Casey, the one that's commenting, he's my host, my fellow host on this show normally. He and I have been kind of going back and forth on that first pick specifically in the draft. And to your point, none of it matters a hail of beans until after the free agency is done.
Right.
Because, we have to see what happens there. But I want to focus on the offensive line. You watched the Eagles offensive line, the Chiefs offensive line. You go back to the 90s with the Cowboys offensive line, even the Bills offensive line back then. You've got to have a line.
Yep.
And I just feel like that even with the weapons that we currently have, if you can build that line to be one of the better lines in the game, Allen will sit back there all day long and tear any defense apart, just
Yeah.
like what Mahomes did to the Eagles defense. I have no doubt that he has that ability in him. So I really want to see some free agent offensive linemen, one or two of them, depending on the cost, because I know, like you said, we don't really have a lot of money. I know there's some restructuring that can happen.
Yeah.
They could free up some money, but
Yeah.
and then
I mean, they
I
they
want to
restructured
see,
Josh. If they restructure Josh, well, they're gonna have to restructure Josh. I
yeah,
mean, it's gonna be, I think it's like 21.5 million that they
yeah,
can save with the with free agency or with the cap, excuse me, if they restructure Josh. I mean, there's a couple of other people. Obviously, Diggs can be restructured, Trey can be restructured. But we'll see. I don't want to, put us in cap hell for the next, 5, 6, 7 years. But I am one of those people that say, "Just give me one for now." I
I
just
had
want
some of
one, but I yeah,
my
I feel
my
like if I
neighbors over
get
here.
no, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're good. My neighbors are Chiefs fans. So
Oh,
for the Super Bowl, we had them over, of course, and after the game, Josh, my buddy, and I are standing there just kind of watching the post game stuff and the confetti and everything, and he's just got this big old grin on his face. And I was just looked down, I was like, Josh, I just want one. Just give
yeah,
me one. At this
yeah.
point, yeah, because I lived through the first four Super Bowls. I was a teenager then. I went through the Music City Miracle and the drought and all of
Yep.
that. Um, I just want one. Just one. And you know
Yeah,
what? The
and
Super
I
Bowl
know
is
I'm
on my birthday next year. So
oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I know I'm selfish enough, like, I know that there's a part of me that says I just want one, and once I get one, I'm gonna want more. But I think that at the same, at the same point in time, I feel like as a fan, I just need that one to kind of take off that pressure every year, that I always feel. So
and I've said this before. I think too that I love Bill's Mafia, but there are some of them out there that are a bit much. I
oh
think
yeah,
if that we could just get that one, a lot of that might subside. Like
yeah.
if Buffalo it will win or lose, if they didn't look good, there's fans ready to throw the whole team out the window. It's crazy.
We became very spoiled very quickly. So I
Very
mean,
quickly, yeah.
we lived through the drought for so long, and being okay. We were okay for so many. Weren't bad enough to get the good draft picks, but we weren't good enough to go to the playoffs. So we kind of sat at 500 for so many years. So I think that once we realized that Josh can do what he can do, it came down quickly. And then for us to start, doing, going to the playoffs every year, consecutive years, that it's gotten to the point where people expect more. And I mean,
Yeah.
since when have we ever had expectations of, like, no, this year's the Super Bowl and we're gonna win it, and then we get knocked out again. So it was definitely a frustrating end to the season.
Yeah. And the way too early odds I already have Buffalo number two, behind KC again. I don't want that. Can we just not
Yeah.
having those
Yeah,
just
and then the
tone it
most
down
of
a
the
little bit?
most of the power rankings have us in the top 5. So,
Yeah.
which is surprising to me. I mean, I know we have Josh, but Von's not going to be healthy. I know he's saying he'll be healthy in August, but he probably won't be healthy enough to play until, I'm saying, bye week. Most people take a year, which would be Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
We don't know what our situation is right now at safety. We don't know what our situation is, at linebacker. And, as much as people want to talk about Edmonds, if he leaves, like, we need a new, they call his position the quarterback of the defense. We need somebody else out there that is going to be able to direct that defense. And we won't have Poyer either. He was kind of the other person that was always directing people and making sure everyone was where they needed to be. So it's a real concern to lose both. So I hope they figure it
Yeah.
out. I never want to overpay anybody, obviously. It never works out well when you overpay somebody, but yeah, I definitely think
Mario
we need to figure
Williams.
out. Let's not even go there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and I hope
I
that
think
Vaughn
they
gets
need to bring
healthy
him
and does
back.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if Vaughn doesn't get healthy and show that he's worth the 17 and a half, people are going to say that we overspent. So I just want to make sure that that's not the narrative.
Yeah. I I kind of get a little bit frustrated with the idea. I seeing a lot of the Bills continue to focus on the defensive line, and it's still a problem. It's a very different narrative, I think, this season had Miller, Jones, and Phillips not been injured towards the latter part of the
Yeah.
year. I think if we go into the playoffs, all three of those guys healthy, I don't think anybody's talking about the defensive line being an issue.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that we can bring Jones and Phillips back next year. And obviously Miller will be here, but to your point, I don't.
Isn't Daquan on his doesn't he have 2 years? So
I believe it's a
he's
2 year.
yeah,
Yeah,
so he'll be back
yeah.
regardless. I just love Phillips's energy. He's probably one of the nicest players I've ever met too. So I'm really looking forward to, I really hope that they bring him back as well. Settle is young. So it would be nice to have him back and healthy to see. But again, it's all about the money, money at this point, like what that would be, what that would require. But I think that the defense is going to look very different than what we're accustomed to seeing. I think that there'll be a couple of mainstays that that stay, but then we're going to have some people that we don't quite recognize. But I think that there's also some trades that might happen that might also surprise us. To clear some space, and I think Basham is probably a good option to be. Boogie might not be there no more. Someone actually mentioned to me the other day, Trey White, and as much as I hate it, I get it. As much as his contract is, um, and he didn't quite look like Trey. And will he ever come back looking like Trey? So it'll be interesting to see what we do at the start of free agency. It's my favorite time of the year. I know it's weird, but I love getting into the
It's
whole
exciting.
contract. Yeah, I love getting into the whole
Yeah,
contracts thing, and seeing what the front office does, and I get intrigued by all of it. So I get a little I geek out a little bit about it all. So you guys will see that coming up. Definitely, I'll probably be tweeting about stuff every single day. Starting in March. I think it's the March 15th is start of free agency.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
yeah.
it's funny. Last year around March, I actually got on with fansided.com and started writing. Unfortunately, I couldn't get on with the Bills in, so I was writing for the Rams, right? Just to kind of get my foot in the door. And one of the first articles that I did was a free agency article, and it was a prediction article, I guess. But I was saying, the Rams could go out and get Allen Robinson. I
Mhm.
got trashed on Twitter so much for that. They're like,
Yeah.
"There's no way they can afford that." And blah, blah. Like the next day, they signed him. Oh man, I was like, "What were you guys saying?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but to your point, you just never know
You never
who's
know.
going to end up with your
And
team.
you could figure out ways, and Bean is really
Yeah,
good at it, kind of finagling. And it's not just Bean, it's and I can't even think of his name all of a sudden in the front office. That finagles the numbers and gets it to where it's the smart way to have each contract structured so that they can afford it every year the right way. So it's
yeah,
I've we all call him Big Baller Bean and everything when he does the right things in our mind until
right,
he does it
yeah,
the wrong way. But so I think that we will have money. We'll figure out a way to have the money. The question is how all in are they really? I know that they said we were all in last year. That's why we got Vaughn. It didn't work out. So they're not changing they're not changing any of the staff really. So it'll be interesting to see what they're considering on both sides of the ball, because obviously they feel like it's not coaching, it's more execution. So we'll see. I think that if we bolster our offensive line, we don't really need to worry too much about running back. I would not say go first, second, or third round running back if we're focusing on the line. I think that with a better line, we would be able to really excel. I think
yeah,
Cook can be a number one running back. And I've changed my opinion on that, because if you heard me probably before Thanksgiving last year, I was so tough on him. Left and right, I was so tough on him. Like, he just looked confused all the time. Where the point where Josh is yelling at him, do this, do this, do this. Um, but over the course of the last probably 6 7 weeks, I heard a lot of people talking about how difficult the playbook was, which how difficult the offense was, which a lot of people have been commenting so much about Dorsey, and about how our offense was too vanilla, and blah blah, all these digs at Dorsey. And I'm not giving him a pass. I actually, I went to UM. For people that don't know me, I actually was there during the years he went to school there. Um, he is like, people back then said how brilliant of a football mind he has. And that, people joked that he's a psychopath. And now people are still joking about it to this day, which is funny. Um, I honestly think that he might have pulled back some of the playbook, because not everybody was grasping it. And I honestly think that Josh's injury affected some of the playbook as well. I feel like we looked extremely different from the Green Bay game, second half on. And I am one
Yeah.
person that made a comment. Josh got hit really hard in the Green Bay game, and his head hit the turf really hard. I felt like he started playing different in that game. So I think that he came out in the Jets game not looking himself that whole game. And I think that the UCL injury just kind of added to it. But
Added.
he might have had his bell rung a little too hard for a few games there, where he didn't seem to be processing things the right way. And he seemed to want to start running a little bit more, for his life, because I don't feel like who wants to get hit. But um so I think that, I'm personally willing to give Dorsey that extra year. But it's concerning. I will say this: if Eric Bieniemy was willing to take on a offensive coordinator position as a lateral move, do the play calls, and if Dorsey, he wouldn't be, but if Dorsey was willing to give the year to learn with Bieniemy, I would be all for that. But there is people who would take Dorsey as their offensive coordinator, especially in the college ranks. They would take him in a second.
Yeah.
So we would end up losing out on Dorsey. I think Eric Bieniemy can go 1 year somewhere, and he will eventually get hired as a head coach. So it'd kind of be a 1 year rental, which I don't think is worth learning a new offense and then having to
Again.
learn, again. So Josh is doesn't need that again, So I'm intrigued to see what next year is going to hold. I think that with the whole, off season with everybody, and then we just need to fingers crossed that everyone remains healthy this year, because it's weird, because in 2021 I feel like we were just so healthy, and it was, we take it for granted. And then um you know other than, obviously, other than Trey, he got hurt Thanksgiving. So but for the most part, last season we were, 2 seasons ago, we were pretty healthy. So last season just seemed weird. Like, I feel like from the beginning of the season, it was just one hit after another with injuries. So um
Yeah.
so we'll see how this all shakes out. But I definitely, and I know I see Casey wrote in the comments regarding Diggs with his frustration and his restructure. I think we're blowing it all out of proportion. I really do.
I do too.
I
I do
mean,
too.
I don't think I don't think that Diggs wants to go anywhere. I think he wants, obviously he wants to win. But I don't think that it's, everyone's concerned that his and Josh's friendship's ruined. And like, I think I said it right after one game where they were caught, like, yelling at each other. Brothers fight all the time. That doesn't mean that they stop being brothers. These guys are like, and I'm not just saying Diggs and Allen. These guys are so close on this team that they're going to scream and yell and, everything at each other. They're guys and they're passionate and they're contenders. They want to finish the season out with the same goal, Super Bowl. So I think that we're blowing it out of proportion with the media. I think Diggs is fine. I think Diggs knows that he's probably going to need to restructure if we want to bring people in, and if he's really on board with making the team better, then he wouldn't turn it down. Same thing with Trey. And I don't think if he doesn't restructure, there's that opportunity there we end up trading him. I don't want to say that because, like I said, our defense is so scaring. Like, to me, it's like scaring me that it could be so different next year. But I mean, even like safety right now, we have no clue if DeMar is ever going to play again. We have Hyde coming back from his injury, which he's going to be hesitant, I think, in the beginning to get back into everything. And so we have, Jaquan Johnson and Cam Lewis, who's technically, like, not really a safety, but now converted. Like,
Yeah.
it's scary to see what it is. So, like I was saying, if we don't re-sign Poyer, if we don't dive into free agency and find someone that we can get, that can be comparable to him, then I think that, safety could be one of our first people off the board, especially knowing how much, Beane and McDermott like to go defense first. So it's aggravating, but I do think that there are some teams that prove that when you go all in, it could be beneficial. 49ers trading for McCaffrey midseason. I think one of the best trades that, obviously they fell short, but that wasn't McCaffrey's fault. That was the fact that they couldn't have a healthy quarterback.
What a terrible way to lose a game.
Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things that I think that we are probably, it's a cliche, but one or two players away. I think that we might be 3 players away. We need a number 2 wide receiver who's consistent. And I think that we need to worry about the offensive line. I think more so the right side of the offensive line, because I do believe, Bates can go back to the left side. But then is Mitch Morris going to be okay? So I honestly look at the line as we need someone who is a lot like Bates that can play multiple positions. And I have a feeling that they might, who's the guy out of Ohio State? DeJuan Jones. Everyone was commenting about him. He is like 6'5", 6'6", like 370. Guy was literally like going like literally just moving people with like his finger, like his pinky. It was like he had no effort, and it was like people were falling over. It was really intriguing seeing him. Unfortunately, after the day 2, he ended up getting sick, and he didn't practice again day 3. But it's just such a big guy. I just, he might be too big, and I'm kind of looking at the fact that I don't think we really need a right tackle, because I want to believe that that Spencer Brown can turn the page, and it was just his injury. So we have a lot of questions, and I don't know if they all can be addressed in free agency. So, everyone better start hoping that, Beane and McDermott's picks for the draft start to pan out, because, that's what we've been seeing a lot, especially on Twitter. I know every time I open Twitter, it's another failure of this organization. It's like daily now. It's like, well, they failed to do this, and every single person they picked in the first round, is here. And Josh was the last person they picked in the first round. Other than, I think today was Kelvin Benjamin was the last first rounder that Josh has played with, which is kind of scary to think about. But So everyone's I really think is looking at Bean in McDermott as, okay, now you guys, we've elevated you guys every year. Like, you guys are the best, and everyone has loved all of your picks and your moves during free agency and yada yada yada. But then they don't pan out, and now we're starting to realize, well, wait a second, are we blind to it? So it'll be, I think it's going to be our most interesting off season, because there are, like we've been saying, a lot of positions that we need to worry about, and with those positions, not a lot of money. So we need to find those people that are going to step in, like the Jordan Phillips. Like, he came in and he was playing like he was a $17 million man, not Vaughn, at times. And I'm not
Right.
dissing Vaughn at all. I mean,
Yeah.
Vaughn played every penny worth of that 17 million before his injury. Not even just his play, but just his presence of being, with the team and in the locker room. I could definitely see his impact. So no diss to Vaughn, but when you can go out and get Shaq Lawson, for a couple $1 million, and have him really act like he just wants to play and be there, and and show out, we're gonna have to find those guys this year. And I'm one thing that I'm not worried about, which some people seem to be, is our cornerbacks. I feel like, if if we don't trade Trey, we have him, and then obviously we need to get Elam out there every snap. Like, the fact that he didn't even
Yeah.
play a couple of games. But then we also have Benford. Like, um, I think that we're deep enough at corner that I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about safety at this point. So
Well, there's
and
a
then
possibility of Benford moving over to safety too. I've heard that
yep.
come up
And
quite a few times. So
I actually had mentioned that at the beginning of the season, because at camp in Rochester, they actually had him taking reps at
yeah,
safety. So I had mentioned that throughout the season, like, they've been talking about it. They obviously see him in that position. So I think that they'll at least probably cross train him as much as possible for that depth that we need. Um, but one thing that I talked about, someone mentioned, uh why can't I think of his name? Um Kumaro, about bringing him
mm,
back. And like, I feel like, and this is, again, no disrespect to some of the role players that we have on the team. I feel like we have to stop kind of paying these people that really only have one focus, like, just to, I granted, I get he's one of the best special team players we have on the team. He's a special team captain. Like, I get it all. Um, but if he's never really going to come in for a game and have any kind of contribution at wide receiver, shouldn't we look towards people who are going to have that contribution, that can also play wide receiver and
right,
special teams,
right.
so I get having a long snapper. Sorry, Reed. You know, I get having Jones on special teams. Again, probably the best gunner in the whole league and everything. I'm not trying to say we don't need him, because I think that we do, and there's a difference. But he can be plugged in on special teams. And as a running back, if we need it. I don't feel like Kumaro has shown that he can, like, actually be effective in the offense. Gilliam, I think Reggie is underused. I
Yeah,
think that he should definitely be playing more. And I think that that's the thing, is that most of us are most, um what's the word, worried about, is the lack of opportunity that we developed for some of these guys. And you know um Quentin Morris, I think he
Hmm.
was one, like, he sometimes looked, and Knox came through at the end of the year. So Knox definitely stepped up at the end of the year. But I think that we're not utilizing Quentin Morris the way we could. And I think the way our offense is set up, if we had two tight ends out there a lot, um, you know, we could be opening up the playbook to the wide receivers too, because you have an extra blocker basically. Um, and that, to be honest with you, it kind of leads me back to why I like Roshan Johnson so much, for from the Senior Bowl. He is one of those backs that, like, his comment, I think it was on day one, he loves to block for the passing game. He loves it. Like, he's like, there's nothing I like more than to set myself up to take on a lineman so that I'm keeping my quarterback clean. So that's like the attitude, like, you want to see from a running back, that if it's not going to go to them, that they're going to be out there making sure that Josh is protected. So I think that we didn't do that enough, and I think we kind of relied on the long ball way too often. And when that wasn't hitting, especially with a lot of the drop passes and stuff, when that wasn't hitting, our offense just didn't look like our offense.
Yeah, I was listening to one of those live. This was a few weeks. Well, it's been a while actually, but Greg Cosell was on there, and he talked about Josh Allen leaving the pocket too early. That there are times when he's leaving the pocket and he doesn't really need to. Do you think that's born from a kind of a loss of trust in his line? Like,
I
because you were
Of
saying a while
course.
ago about the hits he was taking.
Yeah.
Uh, so I just kind of see that, like, at some point, it's like, okay, I've got like a second and a half.
Yeah.
I gotta get rid of the ball, or I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. And I think that especially after his injury, I felt like I saw him, doing that a lot more. But he's also the kind of guy that, that is it him leaving the pocket too soon, or is he trying to develop something because he feels like it's all on his shoulders? So,
Yeah.
is he trying to open something up, or is he trying to create a play? Um but I do honestly think that he lost a lot of that trust, not only in his line, but I feel like he lost some of it in his wide receivers. So, um sometimes, the I don't want to some of Josh's passes, but some of them were catchable, um quite a bit towards the end of the season. But I also feel like the wide receivers weren't getting open. So I feel like he was just never on the same page with them. And some of that could be because, he I don't know if he was audibling, or if he was changing up the play, or if he was leaving the pocket too soon. He just never seemed like they were the same as they were the first like 5, 6 games of the season. And I'll say kind of removed from the Baltimore game, because the Baltimore game was up and down. Obviously, the second half was a lot better than the first half. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that when Josh is in a fight, that O line, I wouldn't want anybody else to defend me, because that O line is there for him. But I also think that the the O line knows that they've definitely failed to protect Josh. He's one of the best against pressure. So, the fact of the matter is, we shouldn't have that much pressure, though. That we should be able to give him, you know, um we should be able to give him the time. With that being said, also though, I will say that Josh and Dorsey need to probably figure out the short game a little bit
Yeah.
more, because I think that if we did, more of the short, 4, 5, 6 yard, passes, God forbid, it would be amazing if we had a whole bunch of, 8 yard ones. And then we get the wide receiver to actually catch the ball in stride, so that they can get some more yards after the catch.
Yeah.
And they worked on that a lot in the off season, and I saw it. I think it was the LA game. I was so impressed, LA game and the Tennessee game, how our offense just looked I mean, ridiculous. We looked ridiculous. We were so good, and it was quick,
Yeah.
quick, quick. And then we went away from it. And that's what, kind of concerns me a little bit is, what did they see that made us, change it up a little bit. But then I felt like they went back to it for the Pittsburgh game. And, but Pittsburgh game was a little different. Obviously, Gabe had an unreal game. I think that's the game he had like 170 something yards.
Yeah.
But then the next game he has 12. So, and I'm being facetious. I don't know if that's exactly what it is,
Yeah.
but it's that consistency that we haven't seen on offense that I miss, because for other than the Jacksonville game in 2021, there wasn't and the Colts game, there wasn't too many games where I felt like we just looked absolutely terrible. That wasn't, weather related. I know the Patriots game we looked pretty terrible, but that was, weather related. So to go from that, and what we've seen in 2020 and 2021 to what we saw this year, and statistically, we actually had, pretty much the same stats, one less game as well. So it actually makes us look like our offense was technically better. Um, so you wonder if we stop the turnovers and we give Josh just an extra second, and we have one more wide receiver out there that can actually get, you know, 5, 6 targets and you know convert them. Um, the offense is just going to be unstoppable. So,
Do you,
you know,
do you think Shakir could be that guy though?
I
I'll
think
tell you just a quick background on myself. I actually live in Idaho and around the Boise
okay,
area, so I watched Khalil Shakir at Boise State through his entire collegiate career. When we drafted him, I was super excited because I know what he's capable
yeah,
of, and we did see some glimpses this season as
glimpses.
a rookie of what he can do. So, and to your point earlier about the playbook being pretty extensive and complicated, maybe a full year and a full offseason with him in that offense now, and if they can improve, upgrade the offensive line, which I think they will, then I just look at you look at like you were saying statistically, this was as good as offenses as we've had in the past few years. Imagine how much better they could be if they can just protect him, and I wonder if they can give him that protection, if Khalil Shakir can be that Cole Beasley only faster,
Yeah,
and if he could be that, I think that unlocks his offense like
yeah.
in a
Well,
big way.
and I think that that's where we kind of lacked this year. The one thing that I will, complain to me about Dorsey is he didn't get the right people involved, or the right number of reps. There shouldn't be a game where Diggs is getting anything less than 8, 9, 10 targets.
Yeah,
Diggs should be getting at least that. And then you got Davis that he should be getting, 7, 8 targets. We're paying Knox an obscene amount of money. Knox should be getting, 5, 6 targets at least. Um,
he was absent for the first half of the year, like completely.
yeah, and I get, he lost his brother and stuff, but
Yeah,
um, so I think that you look at some of these really good offenses. If you look at Kansas City's offense, you know, every single one of their, wide receivers, and I mean, I'm not even going to say how usually you have Kelsey with 8, 9, 10 targets at least a game. So if you're going to throw the ball 35 times, which we're pretty accustomed to doing, there should be a really easy way to get that to the right
yeah.
people. And I think that Shakir could be more consistent out there. I think, unfortunately, there was just so much unknown when it came, especially in the slot. We have, McKenzie, who was supposed to be something that wasn't always something. And I love McKenzie. I do. I love McKenzie.
Yeah.
But I also don't think we use McKenzie the way we should. And he's still under contract. So I have a feeling he'll be back. I think we could cut him and save like $1 million. But I think that, you know, they probably won't because he can be used in multiple areas. He can, in a pinch, not that we want him to return, but he can be the return man. He can play in the slot. He can do the little gadget plays. We stopped doing the gadget plays, and that's
Yeah.
what, I used to love 2020. I don't know where it all came from, but and I kind of miss Dable for this, but we were using him, coming out of the backfield, doing end around stuff. It was it was the most interesting of our offense that I had seen in the last, decade plus. So, um, I'm upset that we've gotten away from that, but Dable got away from that too in 2021. So it wasn't just this year. Maybe it's they felt like, there was enough tape on it that, people knew that what they were doing. Um, but I think that Shakir some of his catches have been ridiculous. So I
Yeah,
think
he
that
can catch.
yeah. So I think that we can work him in, a little bit more. But a lot of people are saying that he's more of the outside guy. So like instead of the slot. So I want to see, more this offseason what they, were. I mean, granted, they're going to move everybody. I mean, they even moved Diggs into the slot a couple times this year. So I think that they'll continue to do that, but I want to see them use him more. But that doesn't change the fact. I think that my biggest concern with the current organization is that they feel the like the the wide receiver room is good enough heading into next season. Um, but as another note, there's a joke going around because we just got the wide receivers coach that used to be Henry. It used to be
Adam Henry.
um yeah, OBJ.
Odell. Yeah.
His wide receiver coach and Landry for Cleveland and for LSU. I think he might have also been his coach with the Giants too. So, I don't know I don't know what OBJ would be requiring, but I still think that having him on the team is probably the best thing the Bills could do. If they can't go out and be sure that, of a number 2 wide receiver that they're going to draft. I mean, obviously if we can draft a number 2 wide receiver with one of those picks, you don't spend the $20 million a year, but you never know what you're getting when you draft. So
You mentioned a while ago the fact that Diggs has played in the slot a little bit this past year. Just kind of got me thinking, what if we move, keep Davis on the outside and move Shakir out to the outside and make Diggs the slot guy? Imagine the mismatches against slot corners because there's not too many Taron Johnsons in the league.
yeah,
Um, and I think if Shakir could make that move, because I know he can play the position because he did. That's where he was at Boise State. He was an outside receiver. I think that would be phenomenal. Like, I don't
I
know of
mean,
any
I don't
corner that
know.
could match up with Diggs.
Yeah, I don't know either. Diggs' route running is just unmatched. So,
Yeah.
the I mean, I think the question is whether or not he would
Yeah.
want that or be willing to do that. But, there are teams where just because, we say number 1 wide receiver is on the outside, number 2 is, there are teams where their number 1 wide receiver is the slot position, so,
Well, Brady made a career of it.
yes. And you look at Kansas City, their number 1 wide receiver is technically Kelsey, technically,
Yeah.
so it's we're talking XYZ, positions. And I think that when you talk about it that way, not, he'd still be the one targeted the most. I think it's all, whether he'd be up for it. But I mean, I think it would be interesting to see what he could do there.
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun to watch. Heading into the offseason, you mentioned the free agency. I've already said I want to get offensive linemen. And then we got the draft coming up. I want more offensive, like load them up,
Yeah.
and then get the 5 best guys. And one of the things that's kind of drives me crazy in the past years with McDermott is when they put the offensive line together in the offseason, they're still tinkering around with it. It seems like for half the season, like I don't understand why they can't get the 5 best and stick with him and stop moving this guy here, moving that guy here, swing this
Yeah.
guy there. Like with Cody Ford, they were moving him inside, outside. He'd get benched, he'd be back in. Like that doesn't help development whatsoever. So, but with the off season coming up, we talked about safety. Yeah, there's a lot of question marks there. What is kind of like your wish list, like best case scenario that you would like to see happen this offseason?
You know, I think that we're all going to be very disappointed when it comes to free agency because I think that the money that we have is going to be spent keeping certain players. I don't think we're gonna go out and sign any splash players unless it's someone on like a 1 year prove it deal. We'll get a couple of veterans for the line. But I don't there's a part of me that thinks that we might see Roger Saffold back. As bad as he was most of the season, but because of that, I get that he made the Pro Bowl. But because he was so bad at times this season, maybe he does it for a discount. So he can stay. We're gonna need depth, obviously, and the familiarity is there. So um I think that if we you know look at running back, it's crazy because to me it's either you have an extreme or you have the Devin Singletaries of free agency. So I don't think that we'll spend the money there. um so yeah, I mean, offensive line is probably um where we'll spend whatever little money we have, but I think most of the money that we have will be to re-signing the guys that we have. um I think that Cole Beasley could come back for 1 year. I don't think we're going to get Keenan Allen. I don't think we could afford to get Keenan Allen. And that's it's also another one that kind of scares me because he was injured quite a bit over the last 2 years. So um Edelman, I mean, isn't he like 30 some, like 36, 37?
Yeah,
Like he's up there. I don't even like,
he's up
I
there.
think, yeah. I'm good without Edelman. Um but I think we're gonna we have to focus on getting a quarterback, a backup quarterback. So a lot of people are saying that what makes sense versus what would be intriguing. I actually think Jacoby Brissett would be a very intriguing number two. So I think that, and I get what that means for us, but I think that we need better people in practice to go up against. Like our defense needs to be able to see that. So but I mean, for wide receiver, I still say go get OBJ, and pray to God that he's healthy and can remain healthy. I love his attitude. I know people think that I'm crazy. I say I love his attitude. I love his conviction. He wants a ring. He's really close with some of the guys on the team. I don't want Landry. The joke is that we're going to get both. Um, I don't really want him. But I wouldn't turn that down either because I think that would still be an upgrade. It'd still be an upgrade.
Yeah, it would. Like if he had Diggs, Landry, and OBJ. Yeah, I don't see that happening yet. That just seems like too much, like almost like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they're asking for either, money wise. I've seen a lot of people talk about OBJ and not wanting him on the team because of the injury and versus the cost as well. But he's going to be, what, 18 months removed from the injury
Yeah.
come
Yep.
August ish.
Yep.
So I personally wouldn't be really that concerned about that.
Yeah.
The money,
And I'm sorry, I want to apologize. I just realized what Casey wrote when he wrote Keenan Allen, Edelman, and Beasley. He was talking about people who were the number one receivers for their team from the slot.
yeah.
So I apologize. I thought he was talking about people he would like to try to target this off season. So I was just like, was a little confused with the Edelman comment, but all right, now I get it.
Another one from Mike here, Diggs in the slot.
Yeah.
I think I'm would be totally intrigued by that. But to your point, if he would be okay with it, I would think he would be if he's still getting the targets. I don't really
He's
think he
still getting the
cares where
targets.
he's lined up as long as he's getting
Yeah.
the ball.
I think it's
And not a dig on him or anything, but receivers want the ball. That's what they do.
yeah. No, of course, 1,000%. And that's what I was gonna say. It's also yardage because they want to still get those yards, but I think his route running is good enough that he could literally be open in the middle of the field all the time. And
Yeah,
it's definitely intriguing to think about him moving there full time, because you're not gonna like you said, it's always gonna be a mismatch.
yeah. There's before we get out of here, we're at the hour, but I really quickly wanted to touch on. So we're talking about the free agents. There was one offensive lineman free agent. I just did an article today for Buffalo Lowdown, and oh my gosh, the name has escaped me now. But he plays. He's a center primarily, but he did play guard early in his career. He's only, I want to say, 28 or 29, and I'll get the name back up here in just a moment. But or maybe I won't. It won't come up. Anyways, so he, McGovern, Connor McGovern, the
Okay.
Jets center. He's a free agent, and according to Spot Track, his market value is roughly like 12 million. But I mean, Spot Track's
Yeah.
market values are like all over the place, so we can't really
Yeah.
put a lot into that.
Mm.
But the fact that he's a center but can play guard, I think that would be a great signing because one, it's not going to necessarily break the bank because he's not one of the higher end guys, but he's definitely an upgrade. But he's also insurance in case something does happen with Mitch Morse again, or if he does decide to retire. Like
Right.
I think back, what was it 4 years ago, when uh, Eric Wood and Rich Incognito both just like the same week retired. And I
Yep.
feel like that the Bills have trying to recover offensive line ever since then. Like they still haven't been able to get the offensive line back up to where it was back then. So I would like to see maybe if we could get a Connor McGovern in here, move him over to guard, and then if
Yeah,
something
it's
happens,
12
he can jump
million
over to
scares
center.
12 million scares the crap out of me. Like, and sometimes, like you said, like the market value is all over the place. I've actually been noticing it being pretty low lately for some of these positions. I mean, they have Edmonds at, like, I
Yeah,
think
I
it was
saw
like
that.
11 to 12 million. Like, it's
Yeah,
ridiculously low. So, um even if it was 12 million, my concern is if they don't pan out. Like, Saffold didn't pan out. um it kind of concerns me to spend that much money. I'd rather, I really would rather, maybe even our first two picks, looking at, I won't even say first two, because I will say there are probably six or seven offensive linemen that could go in the first and second round, and then it drops off. But they are, and I've seen them work. Like I said, at the Senior Bowl, there are some guys in the fourth, fifth round that I think are going to make a name for themselves, but I just don't know if it's going to be day one. So, um, I'd rather, I guess, take more of the risk on the draft side, um, you know, and be paying these guys a couple million instead of instead of 12, um and then go more, wide receiver or someone. We're obviously going to need to hit the free agency for the O line no matter what. I just don't think
yeah,
we're going to get, like, we're not going to be able to get what's his name from Kansas City, Orlando Brown. Like, he'll probably be like commanding 17-ish million a year, so
yeah,
at least. So we're not going to get somebody that is, you know, a Pro Bowl caliber type guy that we know is a Pro Bowl caliber type guy with the money that we have. Um, Unless we kind of hit on him as someone who hasn't been and is now becoming, like he kind of goes down that line and makes that leap, or somebody from the draft. So I just
yeah.
don't think we're going to get a big name person that we all, that we're all looking for.
And we may not. I always think back to last year. I think Brandon Beam made the same comment about don't expect any big signings, and then they signed Von Miller, and he did the same thing this year too. Don't expect any big Von Miller type signings. I never believe anything he says in the media.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I got to give Casey a little crap here because he's giving me crap about oh man moment.
Being an old
Yeah. Casey also believes that Devin Singletary is a power back, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh.
So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Really quick, Sarah, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Sarah_Larson. On Thursdays at 9 p.m., I am with Jerry Ostrowski for the 3-Man Rush. We're actually rebranding. We had a third member, and now we have 2. So probably within the next month or so, we will be changing our name and big, huge new rollout and everything else. But yeah, so for now, you can find us on Thursdays at 9 p.m.
Awesome.
Just check
Really
out Buffalo
appreciate you coming on.
Rumblings.
Yeah,
All
they've got
right.
some great content over there. Appreciate you coming. And everybody listening to the show, please hit the subscribe, like, share, all of those
Yes.
fun things. And we will see you all next week. Go Bills.
All right. Bye. Go Bills.